transportation seminar. And starting this academic year, the Friday Transportation Seminar for the fall will be held in this classroom. So for those who are arriving physically, it's a change from the KMC, which is across the street. So the intent of the transportation webinar is to share the latest research, transportation research, technology, and practice. And every so often, we do partner with the City of Portland on the PBOT Lunch and Learn series. And this is one of the Friday transportation seminars that we are partnering with the City of Portland. So to kick us off, I'm going to hand things over to Timo Forsberg with PBOT.
Thank you so much. And so thanks and welcome to the Trek Friday Seminar PBOT edition, or as we used to call it in the old days, the PBOT Lunch and Learn, formerly at our City Hall, but now graciously hosted by Trek. And we celebrate the partnership with PSU and Trek. And since I just had a retreat yesterday where we focused a lot on our new strategic plan for PBOT, one of the things that we focus on is partnerships. So celebrating the partnership with Trek, but today we're specifically celebrating the partnership with the Community Cycling Center, who are longtime allies with us in making Portland a more friendly place for folks using active transportation. And so today specifically, we'll be hearing from Johnny Ling, who's the Director of Programs and Enterprise at the CCC, on a partnership with our Big Jump project. Johnny has been with the organization, the Community Cycling Center, for 11 years and has been working in bicycle education since 2003 and is committed to working with the community to create a more equitable and multicultural approach to bicycle education. And so with no further ado, please join me in welcoming John.
So that's the little underpass under 205 on 122nd. It's a group of about, I think, 10 kids all on the line. They're mostly getting off their bike because it's uphill. It looks like they're riding. So that's part of what I'm going to be talking about today. As Timo mentioned, I work for the Community Cycling Center, been there for 11 years. At the Community Cycling Center, our mission is to broaden access to bicycling and its benefits. We're celebrating our 25-year anniversary this year, and we got a fancy new logo for that. So that's our logo. Our vision is to build a vibrant community where people of all backgrounds use bicycles to stay healthy and connected. A lot of folks have seen our mural on the side of our bike shop at 17th and Alberta, and that's kind of a representation of our vision. So the core programs of the Community Cycling Center are, we have a bike shop. We do affordable used bikes, low-income commuter discount, so that we can make sure that bicycles are available at reasonable prices for folks. We sell a lot of used bicycles, so used bicycles at discount keep people riding bikes that want to be riding bikes. We do a bike camp every year. About 700 kids attend. 100 of those slots are reserved for our community camps and for on-site scholarships. We work with PBOT a lot on those as well to make sure that those can happen. We do bike club and our community-centered safe routes to school. That's an after-school programs to keep kids riding and learning. Working with our school community, so parents and teachers and principals and staff, to organize and advocate around safer access to school for walking, rolling, and busing. And what kind of sets us apart, the style of what we do versus other folks, is that we try to embed ourselves in the community. So we make sure that we're present there, not just when we're delivering programming, but throughout the school year, throughout the school day, to make sure people know us, can ask us questions, feel comfortable around us. So it's all a lot of relationship building so that we can have a deeper impact and we hear more when people trust us. And then we partner with lots of other folks around the walking and the busing part. We do focus on bicycles, but we have partnerships with Opal Environmental Justice and Oregon Walks and Street Trust on the other things that we do. We do a holiday bike drive. Lots of folks know about the holiday bike drive. We do about 400 bikes each year that are donated to us. Volunteers fix them up, and we distribute them sometime in early December. Usually it's the first Sunday, but it's like too close to Thanksgiving this year, so we moved it back a little bit. We've delivered about 10,000 bikes over the 20 years that we've done it. Responsive community program and partnership. So a couple examples of what that looks like is that we worked with the New Columbia housing community, and one of their main things that they focused on was affordable bike repair. So we got grants from Prosper Portland to build our hub. So it's just a little 200 square foot shed that we do bike programming out of from May through September, and we send 3 mechanics up there twice a week throughout that whole time to make sure that the kids can stay on their bikes. It's mostly kids, the adults too, but mostly kids swarm the place. Andando en bicicletas y caminando is what they're called now. They just changed it from Andando en bicicletas and Cully because they want to expand beyond Cully. And this is a group of mostly Latino mothers, Spanish-speaking Latino mothers that live in the Cully neighborhood, and they organize around advocating for transportation bond measures that include safe routes to school improvements, infrastructure improvements. They organize bike rides so that they can ride with their community in a way that feels comfortable for the community in the language that most of them speak. First. And then we have our STEM high school bicycle program where we teach physics through bicycles. So this is, we work with 3 alternative schools, young people that aren't seeing success in a traditional classroom. One of those facilities is pretty new to us. We're working with Lord's High School, which is in McLaren Correctional Facility in Hubbard, Oregon. So that's our first foray into working providing programming in a prison. So it's a lot of learning for us and for them. One of my coworkers tried to bring a hacksaw into the prison, and now it's a joke. They're like, "Oh, you're the one that brought the hacksaw," and she's like, "Yeah, it was to shorten kickstands," and they're like, "It doesn't matter what it was for." So there's some learning there. We also work with Rosemary Anderson High School in New Columbia, part of our kind of establishing a presence in the New Columbia neighborhood. And we also work with Helens View, which are now I'm forgetting what the neighborhood's called, just past 82nd, right off of Portland Highway, which I think is now Lombard all the way out. I can't remember what. Yeah. Okay.
Park Rose-ish.
Yeah, just before Park Rose. There's a name for that neighborhood, and I cannot think of it off the top of my head. So both alternative high schools, one with Multnomah Educational Service District, one is a private nonprofit. So a lot of like hands-on learning, physics concepts demonstrated by bicycle using a lot of Discovery Lab style work to engage the students. And focusing on the students themselves over the curriculum. So in these schools, there's a lot of people are facing a lot of other barriers besides just not finding the traditional classroom conducive. So working with them on all sorts of issues and making sure that they can do what they need to do in order to get the learning in, even if that means that we're shifting our approach and shifting our curriculum. So big jump. That's what we're talking about here today. Big jump. Probably. I mean, I know there's lots of folks in this room that know a lot more about it than I do. But for everyone else, Big Jump is a project by People for Bikes, who is our bike industry association, National Bicycle Industry Association. And they're looking to help 10 cities radically reimagine their bicycle infrastructure. It's a 3-year project focused on quickly connecting biking networks and smart outreach. The initiative looking to double or triple bike ridership in specific neighborhoods, making smart changes, getting people more people riding bikes, and making communities better places to live and play, work and play. So that's the big jump. We were selected as one of those 10 cities. And we called our project Gateway to Opportunity. Anybody can correct me if I say anything wrong about this. So that was our city's answer to the big jump question. So we're looking to use streets to connect people with opportunities. We identified the gateway neighborhoods because they're zoned for high density. So that's where all of the building up, or a lot of the building up, is going to happen, is right around there. It's also a historically underinvested neighborhood. So investing in infrastructure in that neighborhood is really important. And part of that is that it lacks infrastructure for walking, biking, and even getting to transit to take transit. This is a little map of the improvements. It's actually really big right here. It was little when I put it on there. So all the orange is our new our funded infrastructure that we've gotten funding to improve, and the green is our existing infrastructure. You'll notice that the greenways, there's no, I didn't see any anyway. Oh, there's one over here. Dotted greenways over on this side of the of 205, and so there's going to be a lot of new greenways going in. All the greenways are new. So that's kind of what it looks like in a very blown up or drawn out form, high level form. So the Gateway to Opportunity goals: improve livability, create more convenient transit connections, encourage bicycling, and contribute to increased safety. Methods are infrastructure improvements and bringing Sunday parkways to Gateway, which you all have probably seen. The funding is coming from fixing our streets, Oregon Department of Transportation, our city's general fund, Prosper Portland, and transportation systems development charges. I said changes every time that I rehearse this. So how does community cycling center fit into all of that? So PBOT approached us because we engage with communities in a very deep way through education and organizing around bicycling and other forms of transportation. And the Gateway area is a place we've been connecting with more and more over the past few years, so it made sense for us to dive in there. So the assumptions that the Community Cycling Center goes into pretty much any work, but also this work, are as follows. We view bicycles and bicycling as part of a healthy transportation ecosystem. So some bike groups are like, all bikes all the time. We understand that bikes are just part of a healthy transportation ecosystem. Bicycles are a vehicle for change, pun intended. So we use bicycles not as the ends, but as the means to improve people's lives. And then equitable access to safe transportation and infrastructure is one ingredient in a recipe to prevent displacement in vulnerable communities. So that's among other things such as workforce development, affordable housing development, and other things that and community agreements with businesses moving into gentrifying areas to hire folks from the community. All right, I'm going to need your help on this one. So this is a little backup one. No, none of them yet. So you all got to cheat there.
We've forgotten it already.
Perfect. So every time we do a volunteer orientation, first Tuesday of every month, if anybody's interested, we have the folks that want to volunteer with us go over what they believe are the benefits and the barriers to bicycling. So I'd like to do that in this room if we can, if people are willing. If you all can call out some, we're going to start off with benefits to bicycling.
It's cheap.
cheap,
It's healthy.
it's healthy,
It's fun.
it's fun,
Independent.
independence,
Faster than transit.
faster than transit a lot of times. All right. Yeah, we can do it now. Clean, yeah. So we hear that folks talk about health and wellness. They talk about joy, talk about the environmental impacts. It's cheaper than buying gas. You got to eat anyway. I hear that a lot. It's easier to park some places, so I didn't hear that in this room. But sometimes, like downtown, I'd much rather ride my bike downtown than drive a car. And it's faster than car. You said transit. It's also faster than car for some trips. I can make most things under 3 miles faster on my bike than any other form of transportation. So those are some of the benefits that I hear a lot. And do you all want to throw some barriers out that people might face to bicycling? Time for longer trips.
Perception or reality of safety.
Perception and reality of safety.
Actual safety.
Actual safety.
Pollution.
Pollution.
Emissions from the vehicles.
Right.
Lack of having a bicycle.
Yeah. Access to actually the
Secure
bicycle
places to
itself.
park.
What's that?
Secure places to park your bicycle.
Secure places to park.
Rain.
Rain.
Physical ability.
Physical ability. These are all very
Wayfinding,
good.
for those not familiar. Wayfinding.
Wayfinding, yeah. So those are the ones that we hear most often as well. Go ahead and click. Personal and community safety. So safety is a big one. Cost to buy and maintain. Social and cultural implications. Rules of the road. Difficult to do with children. Navigation. I think there's one more, and storage. So those are the most common things we hear. So we touched on a lot of them. I think there was, rain, I think comfort. I think that's really important. It's not something we hear often, but it is, comfort is definitely part of it.
Could you say a little more about social and cultural implications?
Sure, and norms. So with social and cultural implications and norms, I'm talking about, say we're working with a Somali population, and traditionally the girls didn't ride bikes. So we're working with all the boys and the men are out, but the girls weren't out. And then we also have situations where traditional dress is difficult to ride with. We have long skirts, we have sandals. So there are things like that. In some of the conversations we've had, folks were like, well, the people in my neighborhood that rode bikes were drug dealers. So there was a situation in which there's like, if you're riding your bike around, you're into something nefarious, or it's I don't know why I'm losing this word, social status symbol, so that if you can afford a car, you drive a car. If you can't afford a car, you ride a bike. So those are some of the things, some of the barriers that folks have identified within that. Thanks for the question, Chris. So we did a study published in 2011, and we worked with 3 groups, and they self-identified as Black and African American, Hispanic and Latino, and African immigrant. So one of the major things we heard, one of the major themes that came out of our Understanding Barriers to Bicycling, it's on our website if you want to look for it. I should have linked it because there's a PDF version of this going out, but I did not. So safety is a big factor, and safe bike storage was a common theme among folks, and that was leading in the Hispanic and Latino community. Some of the other comments we heard was fear of danger of moving vehicles, not knowing how to put helmets on correctly, having questions about laws and insurance, and not knowing trouble spots, how to avoid trouble spots on a bike. And then 64% didn't identify this as a concern, but that was a major theme that we heard. And then you can kind of see what we're doing here: blue and the blue and the red and the red. There's little quotes in the corner for each one of these. So riding, wanting to ride with a group, having a community to ride with. So this is part of why Andando en Bicicletas y Caminando started, was because we were working with Hacienda CDC on gathering this group together, and that's where they're based. But they identified that they wanted to create a group that rode together, and so that's how they were formed. So some of the other comments we heard around safety were that it's difficult to do with children, a fear of just falling, fear of the police, specifically among African immigrant and Hispanic and Latino communities, lack of knowledge about laws and rights, and lack of knowledge about safe routes. And so that's a little bit bigger of a concern. You see that there's only 47% of the people we polled did not find that a concern. The majority of folks did. Cost. I don't have a bike, they cost too much. That was the theme that we heard. And this is some of the other comments we heard. Bikes are expensive. So we talked about cost in both of those categories. It's cheaper once you're established. It's more expensive to get started. Maybe not more expensive. It's expensive for folks without means to get started. Don't know how to repair the bicycles. Not knowing where to take the bikes for repair. Repairs are expensive, and unaware of resources for low-cost repairs and tool use. So in both of the communities that we're embedded in currently, we have done some work around affordability of bicycles themselves, working with the city on and Motivate on Bike Town for All, and getting the folks in Cully into that program. Everybody know what Bike Town for All is. It's inexpensive access to our Bike Town fleet for people living on low incomes. It's $3 a month, but you can just rebalance to pay that. So $3 to initiate, but most folks can rebalance to a point where they accumulated so much credit that they wanted to give it to other folks. So they have a pay it forward program now, which is pretty amazing.
For those in the internet audience, Bike Town is our bike share program for them.
Correct. Thank you. But also we established the hub that I was talking about earlier in New Columbia neighborhood to provide free bike repair twice a week throughout the summer months when most of the people are riding. And then Andando en Bicicletas y Caminando, ABC, they do workshops with their community and have recently started to do come in and work on our holiday bike drive bikes as a community, which is pretty cool. They have their own volunteer night that they invite their neighbors to come and work on the bikes. And so getting more expertise built up in their community. So the methods that we used was I'm kind of going to jump straight into this. So I'll try to back up a little bit. So we got engaged with PBOT. PBOT asked us to, Portland Bureau of Transportation, asked us to work on some outreach and some programming around the big jump and the gateway to opportunity because of the reasons I mentioned before. So some of our methods that we used in order to do that were kind of traditional outreach, partnership, and after-school programming. So traditional outreach looked like going to Gateway Transit Center, tabling with community benefit. I'm a firm believer that if you're going to go out and ask people to provide you feedback or try to engage them in a conversation, that you need to bring something to that community. So we went out there with our tools. I think you saw Matt out there with the toolkit there. He's our volunteer and intern coordinator. And set up to fix bicycles for folks that were traveling by bike at Gateway Transit Center. Did a lot of tire inflation, and we distributed city maps and maps of the improved area, and then talked to people a little bit about what that looked like. we didn't gather a lot of data from this, so my findings are a little tongue-in-cheek. TriMet permits are very difficult to to get on a short notice, but we did manage to do that. People who are writing in the autumn are our core writers, so they're writing year-round, weekly, and they didn't have much information. It was like they were surprised about the infrastructure improvements happening around their community. Most of them were excited, and most of the repair that we did was inflating people's tires. Maybe next time we just go out with a simple kit and a couple of pumps. And then folks responded well to us. They were excited that we were there. We had people being like, I'm going to go back and get my bike and I'm coming back. And they're like, when are you going to be here next? And then just something, this is more of a method, I guess, but Outer Rim is the only bicycle shop in the area, and we just focused on days that they weren't open. So we weren't competing for business. We were just filling a gap in need. So that was important to us to make sure that we weren't just doing for free what they need to do to make a living. So the partnership, so after doing that for a while, we were in need of finding a way to amplify what we were doing. So the kind of, a couple times a week, one-on-one conversations. It felt like that was reaching a pretty limited audience. And so something that we wanted to do was work with a partner that we've worked with before. So IRCO is the Immigrant and Refugee Community Organization. And the weather was getting bad too. We had I think we just had the autumn to work on this project. So as it was getting colder and rainier and maybe a little bit snowy, we were looking for other things to do. We strategically reached out to folks that provide services to folks that usually don't get information that we put out through a newsletter, via email, things like that, language barriers, access to email. And so that's why we wanted to work with IRCO. And then things we partner with them already on were youth internships, holiday bike drive, and bike clubs. So what we offered to do was to provide a basic maintenance workshop where we taught folks some basics around fixing their bike, but also basics around riding their bike in the area. And then we had a little presentation on the Gateway to Opportunity and handed them a bunch of printed maps to distribute to folks that they work with, so that we could kind of work with 10 people and they could work with 10 people kind of situation. And then after school programs, worked with Janice on these with PBOT. So this was focused around reaching families through youth. IRCO was the Sun Site manager for the two schools we engaged, which was Menlo Park and Park Rose Middle. We're still working with both of them. Both the Sun Site managers were advocates for safer transportation options for their students, and they were in the improvement area, and the improvements were happening pretty near both of the schools. Oh yeah, that's a little bit about what we taught: the safe riding practices, navigation in the neighborhood, basic maintenance and upkeep. And so that's a 12-week curriculum, and they, at least the Park Rose Middle School students got to go to Gateway Green several times, which is really exciting because they're close enough to that. So they could see some of the improvement in their community and have access to that. And they earn bikes through it. Part of the conversation was with their parents, who suddenly had all those concerns about the barriers to bicycling, got rid of one of them, but there's also the safety and things like that. So we got the opportunity in both cases to talk to the parents about the improvements that were happening in the area, so they knew where the safe riding was currently available and where it was going to be available soon.
Can you just
Sure.
say in 25 words or less what it means for a school to be a Sun Site?
Oh, sure. I don't remember what the acronym stands for.
I think it's
Schools Uniting Neighborhoods.
Schools Uniting Neighborhoods. So Sun Sites are in Title I schools. So schools with 80% or more free and reduced lunch. I'm bad with numbers. I think that's what it is. So they And then they are after-school programs. So they provide aftercare. They engage several nonprofits in programming, and they design their own programming as well for after school. Close that gap between when kids get out of school and when parents get home, typically, if you're working 9 to 5. Yeah. So what's next? We are continuing our after-school program in partnership with PBOT and working on the big jump. It's been community driven, so what we teach in each school differs a little bit based on what the community identifies as the needs for those things, and the community is asking for it back. So we're not just like showing up and being like, we're going to teach your kids, but they're asking for it and want it. And we're seeing good results. We're seeing kids from our programs riding their bikes and riding their bikes safely. And I get to go out to Park Rose, that's pretty close to my house, pretty often. And so I see the bikes around, and both at the schools and in the areas, the resources around there. And then I think we need to, as a city and as nonprofits and as agencies, need to continue to talk about how we pair transportation with the other parts of the recipe to prevent displacement. So we work in the Getting There Together coalition with lots of folks, which is focused on those things. And so whenever we do transportation improvements, we need to be making sure we're pairing that with affordable housing, paired with jobs and workforce development, and paired with opportunities to build wealth. So we're going to stay engaged in those conversations with the agencies we partner with and with the other nonprofits that we work with and with the community. This is the time in which you have questions for me. This is Lewitt View Park. This is really cool. They just have these misters that come up there, and the kids just loved riding through them. We made sure the bricks weren't too slick, but it made for really cool photographs of kind of eerie. Yes.
Can you say a little bit more about the youth internships? Like maybe give a few examples of what those folks are doing.
Sure.
Is it positive? Like how are they receiving their work?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So the youth internships that we do, and I think that are part of the overall recipe for preventing displacement, is to, we are working with young people that have either gone through our high school curriculum or who have done summer works with us. So for those that don't know what SummerWorks is a workforce development program for young people 16 to 23, I want to say, to get them basically their first jobs. And so they work with lots of governmental agencies. They work with nonprofits. We get them for free. They work with for-profit businesses. Those for-profit businesses have to pay half of their salary. And they have 160 hours to work during the summer. So that's a really great way for us to bring lots of youth into our programs in our shop, and a great way for them to gain some skills. One of those students currently, we can afford to keep one on year round as an apprentice. So they're looking for 240 hours worth of hands-on bicycle mechanics work, so that we can say that they're workforce ready to be a bike mechanic. And then lots of the other students go back to school, or they're in college during the year. I mean, part of what I would say is a show of success is that students want to come back to us. So we've had several repeat folks that get placed with us. They're like, I want to work at that place, and we're like, we want them to work with us. Another success that I see is that we've been able to talk with with Summer Works to get folks from the communities that we're working with both into our shop, but also into the program, working as interns in the programs that are happening in their community, so that they're having a, I mean, it looks like investment in their community. They can have a job that they can get to easily, that they don't have to travel for half an hour to 45 minutes. And if most folks that know things know about the way poverty works, that usually the centers of poverty, there aren't a lot of access to jobs and resources within those communities. So making sure that some of those are happening in the communities that we're working with, I think is really important for us. We've seen students go and do our apprenticeships and do our internships and then go into other trades. I don't think it's going to be a surprise to anybody, but bike mechanics don't make a lot of money. So that's something that we run into a lot. We can't get workforce dollars because we don't have high paying wages or high wages at the end of the line. And so, but it engages people around like problem solving and using their hands to fix things, to build things, and those things are transferable to other trades. So we've seen our most recent apprentice just got a full-time job working, building the boxes on the back of box trucks. So they, you get the frame and they frame out and put the aluminum on the box truck. So he's doing that now. We had one of our mechanics go into auto mechanics, which pays significantly more than bicycle mechanics. So there's a lot of transferable skills, but there's also access to other parts of the industry. So the bicycle economy is pretty huge here in Portland, and it's not just bike mechanics. There's bicycle tours, and there's design work, and there's education work that goes beyond kind of the like 4 hours a week that twice a week that we can offer. So there are other avenues that they suddenly have connections to just by nature of having one more resource in their life. And they call us and ask us to help them prep for interviews and take them to the hospital in some cases. So we've had these, there's some boundaries that sometimes we cross that we should be a little more firm on. But we create these really deep connections with the students, and they trust us. And having another trusted adult in your life is just that's just a very valuable thing for a lot of the young people that we work with. Thank you for the question. Did I answer it?
Yeah, beautiful.
Okay. I'm going to take a drink of water because my mouth is really caught me while you're all thinking.
I may have missed this, but are there any public dollars that are funding these programs?
Yes, absolutely. So the programs that we do that have we get funds through, we work with PBOT a lot on things. So we get funds through Portland Bureau of Transportation on projects that we partner with them on. We have Metro Regional Travel Options grant money, and that money is what we focus on our work with New Columbia and North Portland. We have a direct contract with Willamette Educational Service District, so that's public dollars there. I'm blanking on if we have anything else. And then we have money directly from. I think this is going away, but the Expanding Youth Opportunities was I think it's a mayor's discretionary fund project that they funded some of our bike camps, specifically our ones that were full scholarship, people earning bikes. Mila, did you have a question?
So for the next steps, are you considering expanding the education and other opportunities? And is there any consideration of opening up another physical spot? Many people familiar with East Portland might know that the shop you mentioned, Outer Rim, is basically the only shop in the Gateway area, and the only other shop I'm aware of is Pair Bike Works,
Right.
Another 3 or 4 miles east of there.
Yeah, Rosewood. There's like one more just like south east of Lentz.
Yeah.
But yes, it is a bike shop desert in East Berlin, if for those that don't know. And part of our strategic plan that we adopted last year was to explore moving our office location. So our program and administration offices are in Second and Schuyler. And we recognize that that's not a resource for the communities that we serve. During when we're in session, our program staff aren't sitting in the seats because they go directly to the communities. And so we want to have both a community hub out there and want to be providing the resources that are needed. So that looks like, having a place to launch our community camps so that we're not stuck with half-day camps, which is what in the summer, the Sun schools only have a half day of programming. So having a place to do pick up and drop off is important, and a place to store bikes for the summer camps. Having a place where people can get affordable bikes. Our Alberta location, 17th and Alberta, it's pretty much in the heart of a shopping district now, which is great for producing revenue to support our programs, but it makes it harder for the folks that have been displaced to access it. 72, the bus line. So we are looking. We want to keep our shop on Alberta Street. I think it's important. It does still serve as a place for folks to get affordable bikes that have not been displaced. There is affordable housing in the inner northeast area, and we want to make sure that we remain a resource for those. It also serves as a funding source for us. We're not entirely unique, but pretty unique in that we have a business that provides us funds as well as public dollars and as well as private foundations and individual donors. But we want to take that program and administration office that is not a community resource and make it a community resource that people can access. Get bike repair they need, access to purchasing affordable bikes, and access to the programming and the education and the outreach that we provide. Thanks.
So
Thanks for
that
the question.
might happen at an area that's not inner northeast Portland.
Correct. And we're looking, like the Gateway area is pretty great for, I ran the shop for a while too. And as a business person, I'm like, yeah, if the density is going to go up, we want to be there where we're going to get lots of foot traffic and there's going to be bicycle infrastructure. And having conversations with the folks that are already there to make sure that we're not going to displace their business, I think is important for us to do. So we've been looking kind of basically mostly east of 205, all east of 82nd at the possible communities where we could have the largest impact.
I'm curious, in the activities that you were doing after school at the Sun site, you mentioned some interactions with the parents. I'm wondering if you could share anything from that. I'm really curious about, I'm guessing that some of the parents don't bike, and some of them do. So what were the issues that they were bringing up that maybe how you overcome some of those?
Yeah. So, one of the great things about bicycles is the independence, and that's something that parents fear because they suddenly can't control their students or the youth and children that they are responsible for. They have a little less control, and so in the middle school age, that's already happening. Elementary school, it's kind of initiating, and I have a 2-year-old, and I'm deathly afraid of his independence right now. But I think it's important for us as young people to experience that. So there's kind of a balance of what's important for you to experience as a young person, and how do we make sure that your parents feel comfortable with that. So a couple of the things have been that we've invited families to ride with us. We do with a couple of our clubs where parents were concerned. We did family rides as kind of our celebration of ending camp. We invite the families to ride from school to home with the kids. There was this really bizarre situation where after one club, all the parents, when the kids are on their bikes, all the parents wanted them to ride home, but they wanted to drive behind them. So, so this is like a situation where a kid's going like, I don't know, 8 miles an hour, and there's a car going 8 miles an hour behind them. So, I don't have a great solution. There's not like a cure-all for like that balance. I think it gets down to those relationships and building the trust. Like I've had with a camp we worked with Janice on this summer with Shaver School, we had the person that invited us there was really worried about us riding on the road. I'm like, this is what we do. we teach kids how to do this safely. And so anytime we're like, we're going to leave campus, he's like, are you sure? And by the end of it, we debrief with them and we're like, here's what happened. Here's like one of the kids fell off of their bike, but we were like in places that wasn't a big deal. And by like, I think we did 4 weeks with them twice a week. Well, 4 times a week in the beginning. Yeah. Anyway, it's complicated. As community programming is. But by the 3rd week, we would tell him, and he was like, he'd still get in his like fear mode, and he was like, but I trust you all. So they'd be like, are you sure? I trust you all. You know what you're doing. So there was this kind of a building of trust that happened with him, and that's the same thing that we build with parents. We try to engage them when they're dropping their kids off. We're like, oh, you're this person's parent. Let's talk about this. This is what we're doing, so that they understand. So the fear isn't based on the unknown. And then we had one parent who's just like, they can go with you if you don't go on the roads. And so, I mean, that was Shaver, and they're right connected to Lewitview, so they got to do mornings with us, and we rode around in Lewitview and did some activities and taught some skills that they would need on the road, but they never got to go on the road. So you work within the parameters that folks say. Hey, Janice.
Hi. So we always hear that like the streets are terrible out there and people are not going to ride. What was the experience of the kids on the roads?
So very good question. The kids, so in the beginning, they tend to stay way too close to the curb to the point where they like rub it, and they're going pretty slow in the beginning too, and they don't have a lot of athleticism on a bicycle, especially those that are learning to ride. They're supposed to know how to ride when they join the camps. So you have numbers on this, right? With the percentage of the kids.
We teach a lot of kids to ride.
Yeah, we end up teaching a lot of kids to ride too. And so the like kids that are unsure tend to stay way to the right, and it takes some convincing to get them to feel comfortable. And they're like, I'm back out further than you, so they see me before they see you, and just making that safe space for them. And their experience, I don't get a lot of fear experience from the kids. I've had kids take a pretty like. Yeah, it's just gonna bounce back and forth forever. They are really excited about where they go. I found like being able. One of my favorite quotes from a kid was like, "I didn't know we could get here this fast." Just like the like speed at which they could get to a park that they like to go to, that they usually have to like, wait for transit or wait for their parents to be ready to drive them to or walk to. They know a route to navigate to it, and they've gotten there a lot quicker than they could otherwise. A lot of kids, we accidentally rode by their houses. We didn't ask them where their houses were, but suddenly we were going to, because we kind of try to go in all directions from the schools to make sure that, within reason, to make sure that kids kind of see the infrastructure entirely around their school that exists. And so we end up passing their houses and they're like, oh, I didn't know I could get to my house from school this quickly and easily in this route. So I hear a lot of fear from parents. I don't hear a lot of fear from the kids that are on their bikes. And some of the barriers that we talked about is just that navigation, the ability to look at our lovely PBOT infrastructure map, bike infrastructure maps, biking and walking maps, and be like, that's the easiest, that's the safest route. So that's some of the work that we do with kids. They're just like, what do you think the safest route is to the place that we're going, and let them choose where they want to go, and then be like, I don't think there are any safe routes to that because that's the highway and that's way too far away. Or they want to like hit up like way too much, but choosing within what they choose to let them help us map it. And then we correct them. If we're like, I think we should do this instead. I've been to that intersection. It's not great. So they're like directing them towards resources that allow them to find the preferred routes for getting to school and getting to the other resources in their neighborhood is how we deal with that. Good.
So following up on that, what's the status of safe routes to school in the Gateway area?
I feel like Janice is probably a lot more well suited to answer that question than me.
Do you mean specific programming? Because we work with all the schools, just however they want to work with us.
Well, if we were going to kind of score the ability to access schools by bike, how are we doing in the Gateway area?
We need improvement on our streets. I'm not gonna lie, we need to slow down car drivers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, we're gonna continue working with these schools that Johnny has worked with, and the other schools that are out in David Douglas and Park Rose, to see if we can do not just more infrastructure, but also education, both to the community and to the students. A lot of what he was just saying, like them knowing how to get to school is one of the key things. So like if they do end up missing a ride or whatever, they can still get themselves there. So giving them that information.
So we run the same classes in the schools there that we do in other parts of the city. So it's mostly an infrastructure problem.
I think it varies. Inner Portland is much easier to get around, though there's still some issues there. And then in East Portland, a lot of it is access to bikes, but then also, like people have said, connectivity and safety are issues.
Thanks.
I wonder if it'd be possible to bring up the map again of the
absolutely.
area and just get your thoughts on, after having done this work in the Gateway area with, as we can see, a lot of those orange lines were the funded but still to be created. As of this moment, there are some that are now actually have been built,
right.
But, and this might be a question for both you and for Janice in terms of, do you think that, well, what learning did you get from being out there, and do you feel like there will be significant difference once all the greenways and bikeways are built?
So my experience so crossing the freeway, that connection is pretty scary to do with a bunch of kids.
That's the one you had in the initial picture where the ride there.
Yeah, they're riding. Yeah, they're riding. Yeah, on the other side, scarier because there is no barrier, and we had a car swerve around us and into the bike lane. I don't know if they were trying to intimidate us or if they were on their cell phone. I think the second one's scarier for me because there's no intention behind it.
There are more people on their cell phones probably.
Yeah, probably, who hate kids on bicycles. Mostly got smiles and people waving us through while we were trying to teach kids how to use an intersection correctly. Which is problematic. Like, oh, go, come on. I had, this summer, was able to ride on 102nd since the road diet, and the lanes were put in, and it was so pleasant. It was so comfortable. Cars, I figured people would still be driving in the bike lanes. That's what I thought how people would react. They're like, nope, this is my favorite way. I'm going to keep going this way. But it was really nice. It was there was enough distance between me and the cars that it wasn't as noisy. The cars were going slower. The cars were more polite. I didn't know infrastructure could change behavior that well. So whoever designed that stuff, thumbs up to them. I didn't get the kids from Shaver over there yet, just because it was a bit further distance, and Fremont is a little sketchier than I would like with a bunch of children. There's still some pretty high speeds that happen on there. But I acknowledge that like the north to south routes, those were difficult trying to cross the 205. And so my experience was that like when it was easy to like go around the schools until you had to pass the freeway. And then we were like, okay, listen up. We're going to have to be really like careful. We need to ride in a perfectly straight line. We need to at least coming back over that. So I'm excited about all the north-south infrastructure. I feel like you can kind of navigate through neighborhoods, mostly east-west. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of like if you're willing to kind of work around the main streets, there's a lot of neighborhood routes that you can take if you're just looking to get a ride in. It's pretty simple to just do neighborhoods when you're like have destinations that cross major arteries. Those I think will feel a lot better with the improvements that we're looking at. That's my feeling. You ridden out there, Janice?
I rode 102nd from downtown. I rode up to 102nd over to the Park Rose School District. So it was great. Enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Well, I think we're at 12:30, so that brings us to the end of the seminar. Let's give Johnny a round of applause. Here we do still have coffee and some snacks up here, so feel free to grab a cup of coffee, grab a snack, and you can have a conversation with Johnny or with each other. And then we also have handouts for the Friday Transportation Seminar series up through the end of November, and we're really excited about the speakers that we will be bringing here to speak to you. So with that, have a good day.